Hey guys, this is Matt from Upsilon Mining, and here is my video on power connectors for Pci Express risers. Okay guys, we're just gonna get started real quick on what some of these things are. I just have the camera set up to point down to demonstrate the 4 ways that I know of that, well, essentially there's only 3 ways you can actually connect a riser card. So first off, what is a PCI Express riser card? So traditionally on a motherboard, you'll have the board layout and you'll have the expansion slots on the board. And generally speaking, when it's inside of a computer tower or desktop tower or an enclosure, you'll be able to slide your graphics cards in or other devices in directly in and use them. The issue comes up when you're trying to build something like a mining rig, when you want to have multiple, sometimes 6, 8, 12, or even more GPUs added to it. So how do you do that properly with the space? I mean, you could go with something like a server motherboard and put it in a server case, in which case you have a large motherboard, obviously, and then the slots themselves are actually spaced out evenly, and you can place that inside of the case. The whole purpose of a riser card is to actually allow you to expand the position in which a GPU exists in relation to the board. So, I mean, in layman's terms, or just maybe saying that in a less convoluted way, is put your GPU somewhere not directly on the board, so it doesn't have to be plugged right into the board. For space reasons, for form factor reasons, whether it's in a rig, an open rig, or a mining an enclosure, these are all things that you want to accomplish with a GPU riser like this. So essentially, a riser is just a board, a small circuit board, essentially, with a slot on it like that. Usually with a little locking mechanism like this. There's a locking mechanism, so you open it up like that, you put the card in, and you lock it in like that, and that will generally keep it locked in place. Now this board itself connects to the motherboard with a USB cable. Okay, so this is what allows you to put the board somewhere like this, or 6 of them or 8 of them in a row like that, and have this connected onto the board. And if you look at this board itself, you'll see that there's multiple ports on it. So there's the USB port right there. Okay, and then you'll have means of powering it. So now that, since you're moving this away from the board, it needs to supply power to the graphics card as well. So the GPU itself draws power out of this slot. Generally, when this is on a regular motherboard, the motherboard will supply the power directly through the slot here. But when you're moving this away from the board itself so you can put the GPU somewhere else, you need to supply the power, and that's done through a power port. So this is a 12-volt port here, and you can see there's one here, which is a 6-pin PCI Express. I think you can see that. Okay, and then over here, you'll have a Molex connector. So this is a 4-pin Molex connector. And then obviously there's another, well, not obvious, but there's also another PCI Express port right there to supply power, 6-pin. And that's pretty much it for most of these. Some of them will actually have a Sata connector as well. So that is another type of power which I don't recommend, and I actually used on a few of my rigs when I first built, rigs that I built, I actually used Sata Power until I realized why you shouldn't do that. So that's the board itself. Okay, let's get into the methods of powering this thing. Okay, so generally speaking, you're going to want to run power to this board from your motherboard. We're going to start at the top on the ways that we shouldn't do it, and we're going to move down to the ways that you should do it. The first way is supplied by Sata Power like this. So this here would connect to your Sata Power connection out of your power supply unit, and this 6-pin here will then go into the riser card like this. Snap right in like that. Okay, and it comes out obviously like that. Okay, that's not recommended. That supplies up to 54 watts of power, which means you're allowed to, well, you're not allowed to, but I mean, it's the capacity of the wire itself and the connector can handle about 54 watts. Okay, so once you start pushing more current through the wire is going to heat up, and due to the gauge of the wire itself and the contact pins, they can actually melt the plastic and short out, and that could lead to things like, damaging your graphics card interface, frying, just melted plastics, smoke. Worst case is a fire. The rig could be damaged itself, or I mean, it could set other things on fire around your rig. So the point being is you don't want to force too much current through any wire which can't handle it. And unfortunately, this is not meant to supply the amount of wattage that's necessary in some cards. 54 watts might be okay with some low power GPUs. But for the most case, a lot of the higher performing GPUs actually require more wattage than this. A lot of the other YouTuber personalities about mining have actually done videos where they've tested the amount of power that comes out of the riser card itself through the slot, and sometimes it can go past that. And even though most cards might not ever pass 54 watts, if it does for any sustainable amount of time, that could be bad. The second type is a Molex. I've been building computers for about 20 years or so, like a long ass time. And these things have been around since day one. I mean, we used to have hard drives that used to have these 4-pin Molex connectors. And these are actually quite common as well. These can pull up to 132 watts, which is pretty good. So, I mean, if you can't, if you have no other option, then this is a pretty good option as well. So that's 132 watts. But still, it's not the best. But if you need this to use this in a pinch, you can use this as well. And this, you can tell just by feeling the wire here and the quality of the connector that it's actually a thicker gauge, and it can deliver more current to the card through the riser. Third is actually Pci Express. There's actually two types of Pci Express. Well, essentially it's one type, but they're categorized into two different, for the purpose of this video. So you get the 6-pin connector, and you got a 8-pin connector. Yes, or 8-pin. Yeah, so a lot of cards will actually only use a single 4-pin connector on the top. Risers, for the most part, the ones that I've seen have all used the 6-pin Pci Express, and that supports up to 75 watts of power. Generally speaking, this is the most recommended means for which to power your risers. It's because of the fact that the wire itself can actually handle more current, and it's actually preferable to Molex in different ways as well. So yeah. And that concludes the video today on how to power your GPU riser card. Make sure you subscribe below so that you may get notifications for new videos which I may release, and it helps me, it helps the channel, considering I'm a new YouTuber. So yeah, I'm just getting started with this myself. I've been mining for about maybe 3 to 4 months now, so I'm still a rookie in my opinion, completely a rookie, but I have built a sizable farm, which will be coming up in another video where I do a tour of my 3.2 gigahash mining farm. Thanks guys. Subscribe below.